I realize it's been a while and I do apologize for that. I believe my last video that I did on here was about Art Prize, which was in October. Then the holidays and my son's birthday, and then I thought, oh, I'll work on my next book now, which I have been working on. I've got 10 illustrations so far. And then Comic-Con is coming up, and suddenly I had to start preparing for that. So instead of trying to show you everything that I've done since my last video, I'll try to give you some little clips and give you some video footage of what I'm working on right now. So here we go. So here is the second of my two spiderweb paintings. I think I did these in October. I know I was thinking about Halloween themed things. And just to correct myself earlier, Art Prize did start in September, but I believe it wrapped up in October. It always straddles the months like that. So this is Broken Spiderweb. The first one was a complete spiderweb, and this one had some empty spaces in it. So it was sort of different here with this painting of a spiderweb, was that I was leaving the white part of the spiderweb and painting in the little shapes in color that created the spiderweb. It felt, or I thought of it as a reductive painting, sort of. It was a little tricky, but it was really fun. I love pattern and color, and so this just really scratched both of those itches for me. It was just so fulfilling somehow, and they were very well received by people, although I still have both the originals. They're framed and they're lovely, so still trying to sell them. I've sold some prints. Speaking of prints, do you think that prints should only be limited edition archival prints, or are cheaper prints okay? I've been wondering, because the way that I've sold my prints thus far has been that I've just created photo prints. Haven't really kept track of exactly how many I've sold of each one. So I'm wondering if maybe I need to change that practice. I feel that if I do archival prints in limited editions, which I hope to do at some point, it's just they're a lot more expensive, then we'll have to do limited editions. And of course they'll be signed, but that's probably not going to be immediate. I should mention at this point that I have applied to a couple of juried art fairs for this coming year, so I'm really hoping I get into both of those. We'll have to see. I hear it's a whole different world over there. The booth fees are a lot higher, but it's all artists, and all the people that are coming to see you are in fact art collectors looking to buy art. They're not coming to a craft fair expecting to buy pot holders or tea towels or crocheted stuffed animals or whatever. Not that those things aren't great, but it makes it harder to sell a $200 framed watercolor when everything around you is so much cheaper and more utilitarian, I guess. I mean, paintings are wonderful to hang on your wall, but some people just don't seem to see the point, I guess, which is highly unfortunate. And then, of course, the market is flooded with lots and lots of artists all trying to do the same thing, though not so much at the craft fairs. The craft fairs, it's mostly crafters, and there's a few artists, and the people that are looking for art are kind of far and few between. Ta-da! So, ta-da, there is that painting, and here's a craft fair. Speaking of which, actually, this one was more artsy than some of them. This was Uncle John's Cider Mill, and I did really well at it, although the wind destroyed my tent. I had two friends come to my rescue as I was trying to set up my tent, and it almost blew away, and one of them had this great setup that basically helped save my tent. These are some frames that I was spray painting. They were old frames. They were actually free frames. A friend salvaged for me up in Canada. And oh, this is a painting of two little mice taking shelter under a mushroom. this was one of the first paintings I think that I've done as a watercolor, where I used a micron pen to sort of do the outline instead of outlining with the brush. I've started to get frustrated with the brush as an outline technique for at least some paintings, because it's unreliable. It's too thick. So this one was the same with the micron pen beginning. It's a spooky owl with flames in its eyes. I'm really happy with how this came out. And you can see my cross-hatching and sort of scribbly technique in the sky to just make the sky more interesting. Also, it helps with blending. It makes it easier to blend everything together. But I'm not completely sure I'm satisfied with this technique either. I'll show you another in a minute. Oh, this is Mori Quartz. This was supposed to be a really big event. Well, it was. It was huge. There were so many crafters there, not a lot of artists. I was actually not the only artist who was there, but I really didn't do great. And it was a bit disappointing, but that is the way these things can go. You just never know. And here's another one. This one was at a bar. These were back-to-back shows that I did. I think it was November. It was strange. It was very dark in there, so I didn't do great. Oh, here's a painting I worked on for most of the summer. It was a commission for a friend who'd actually commissioned other items from me in the past. This was precisely what he wanted. 2 wolves with the dream catcher holding the moon, and he wanted the wolves to be like black and white, like a yin-yang. So I was pretty excited with how that turned out. It took kind of forever. Then these are some Christmas ornaments that I made. So I did these watercolor Christmas ornaments, and then I glued them onto the wooden discs with Mod Podge. And then after that, I used a wax. This is this it? No, this is still the gluing. Oh, yes, I had to weight them all down at the end with books. And there are my books. And this is the Dorland's wax. So this is a protective coating you can add to watercolors to protect them. You can also use it instead of glass in a frame, but I've just been too nervous about doing that. I almost used the Dorland's wax on a watercolor, a fairy watercolor for Comic-Con, which I will tell you about soon. That is what's going on now, or that's what's going on soon. But I don't know. I'm just not so sure about it. I have an artist friend that uses it for his watercolors. Well, sort of a friend. Somebody I met on Instagram. This was an illustration. Well, this was a cover illustration I was commissioned to do by somebody else that I met through social media. This is a Facebook friend, although I think I have met him. We're following each other on most social media. This is William Burkhart. This is the cover for him. And then here's an illustration for my new book that I'm working on. So I think I called this one Just Passing By, but this is Amber the Dragon and the Wizardbird Dante waving at each other. Amber's going to go visit the dragons again and see if maybe there was a misunderstanding before when she was visiting them the first time, and one of them invited her to go on a bird hunt, and she freaked out and flew home at all speed to save her bird friends. So this is what I'm working on lately, preparing for Comic-Con. From what I understand, fantasy art is big there, so I did a series of fairy paintings. This one I titled Star Fairy. So I'm really pleased with how this one came out. I hadn't done a silhouette style stained glass painting in quite a while. I did a couple in the past, inspired by somebody else that I met through Facebook who wanted me to do I think I've shown that on a video. I'll have to see if I can link it in the comments. So here are 2 other fairies. They're both maybe male, maybe androgynous. Pretty happy with how these 2 turned out as well. I had these little frames that I bought at an antique shop, so I was making them to fit the frames. So that is why they are so small. But I've actually done some little paintings specifically designed for little frames before. I did some little skeletons around Halloween time that were pretty cute, and I believe they all sold. I need to double check at the art shops. I am trying to do my best with keeping track of inventory, but sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes the art shops will stow things away in the basement, and then you don't know for a while that they still have things of yours that aren't out, and you have to really go search for them and figure out what's missing from your collection. So this is another fairy. This is Flower Fairy in the Magic Garden. So I sort of borrowed a background from another painting that I did in the past that sold. It was Kissing Frogs in the Magical Forest, and it had the sort of vignette circle of trees in the background with a atmospheric pink sky. So I used that again for my fairies, and I was happy with the bark texture. This is an illustration for my new book. So another illustration for my new book. So this is Amber getting up there in the clouds to meet up with her dragon friends or foe, or she's not really sure yet, but she has come to talk to them. And Ember, the green dragon, has outstretched hands wanting to give her a hug, but she's sort of like, wait, let's talk. Here's me rearranging my studio in order to pull out a big piece of paper to rip it into smaller pieces of paper. I thought I'd show sort of not only the process of ripping the paper, but also the process of moving everything around in my studio to make room to do this process. Probably lots of artists have to do this sort of thing. You have to do what you have to do when you have a small space. So my space is probably about 12 by 12. So
here we go.
I have a lot of things
6
stored
sheets,
here, and I've got
a little one for stickers.
Just make the best use of it that I can.
Tiny paintings.
But the ripping paper, I think, works pretty well. So I believe this is the final time-lapse sequence here. This is my newest painting. I actually just finished it today. So there's this little girl that visited my booth at this one craft fair that was just sort of out in the middle of nowhere. And she saw my dragon paintings of Amber the Dragon from my children's book series, and she said, "Oh, nice dragon. I can paint realistic dragons, or I can draw realistic dragons." And I thought, well, that's sort of funny. What is a realistic dragon exactly when they are, in fact, not real creatures? So how can you really be realistic with them? But I did know what she meant, and I I think initially felt a little offended, but she's a kid, you know, she's just going to say what she thinks. And in any case, I did take it on as a challenge. So here's my realistic dragon. I'm pretty proud of it. I tried to really get into all the detail, get all the scales drawn, since I've been working with the micron pens first. And the wonderful, one of the wonderful things about watercolor is that it's transparent. You can see the ink through the watercolor. So then the background, I thought I would do a landscape. Well, I had intended to do just sort of mountains and a moon and clouds, and then I thought I should make the background a little more detailed, since the dragon was so detailed already, and I didn't want the background to fall flat when the foreground was so interesting. I wanted to make sure that it was all a sort of captivating piece that would keep your eyes moving around, checking it all out. So I did more detail in the background, and then I kind of borrowed actually the mountains and hillscape and the sky to some extent from another painting that I had done that actually won Best in Show at an art fair over the summer in Escanaba. So must be a good painting, but it still hasn't sold yet. But that's not always the measure, I guess, of what makes good art, just whether it sells or not, because probably some crap sells, and lots and lots of beautiful art remains sitting on shelves waiting to be sold. So here is this dragon. I named it Night Guardian. I'm pretty happy with it. So in any case, there you have it. That's what I've been up to since I've been gone. Since my last video in September or October or whenever it was. I've been busy making lots of art and trying to get into new shows and not really working on my website very much, but it exists if you want to check it out. And yeah, that's about it. Comic-Con is coming soon, so come visit me if you can. It would be really great to see some friends out there, and I'm really hoping I do well there. I definitely consider myself a geek, and I hope that I am understanding what these folks enjoy. So I'll see you next time. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for future videos, and hopefully it won't be so long until I make the next one. Bye.